Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whitepod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at Wytlabs. We're a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. I've got Ardy with me today. He's the CEO and co-founder of SEQSTER, a leading healthcare technology company that breaks down health data silos at scale. A big welcome to you, Ardy. I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on your amazing show, and looking forward to the discussion as always. Happy
Thank you.
2024.
Happy 2024. All right. Can you let our viewers know about your background and how you got started in the healthcare technology space?
Yeah, I think everyone has their journey of where they go from point A to point Z. Sometimes you think it's going to be linear. Mine was very twisted and through obstacles and through fires and walking on water and you name it, I've gone through it. I've been in the health tech, biotech, and life sciences, particularly industries, for the last 22 years, since 2002. But my journey really started in 1996 when I was 16 years old at the prestigious Salk Institute for Biological Studies. That was at the time where, I saw firsthand what researchers were actually doing in the lab. And then from there, I went on and I was pre-med. Unfortunately, didn't make it through, but I graduated with a biological sciences degree. And then I got into actually sales and marketing at a very young age when I was 21 years old within biotech and life sciences, and mostly in the research tool side. And in the early 2000s, the genome was being sequenced for hundreds of millions of dollars by the US government and a guy named Craig Venter at the time that was running a company called Celera Genomics that was NIH backed, and there was a race to the whole genome. And I was always fascinated with DNA, whole genome sequencing, because I was lucky enough to be raised in San Diego, California, which is the mecca of where genome and genomic technology has been born. And so being around that innovation, I got into next-gen sequencing, DNA sequencing. I got into certain companies that were dealing with clinical diagnostics on the cancer side, on the rare disease side, on the diagnostic odyssey side for children. So I was able to touch various different facets with technology, research, bioinformatics, data science, and of course, I had some experience in commercialization and some family DNA in marketing and in business. I was blessed with that. And you put that all together, I became an executive in my late 20s and took a startup that was around not even 20 employees to over 1,000 with very little investment as the senior vice president of that company. I started certain divisions within genomic services that hit on pharmaceutical companies that wanted to outsource that service to companies that had our types of innovation in technology. I was part of the SCOTUS decision, which is the ruling for gene patents for breast cancer, and fought Myriad Genetics in federal court and with 3 other people at the company, and we prevailed. And that's how we actually had $1 billion exit. The last company I was part of sold to Konica Minolta and the sovereign fund of Japan for $1 billion US cash. And I was in my early 30s when that happened. And so I was always thinking about the next thing to do. I was sick of the lab business. I was a big Napster user, and I loved how how music sharing would happen. I thought, what if you made a platform or a technology that can share all your data, all your electronic medical records, all your genomic DNA data, all your medical device and wearable data. So I founded SEQSTER in 2016 of January. SEQSTER just turned 8. I was running around JP Morgan Healthcare Conference with my green backpack. It's still here.
Amazing.
And with my business idea in here, I call it the bulletproof backpack. No competitors can take us down because the secret sauce was always in my backpack. They were trying to go after me. They should have gone for my backpack instead. that's a whole nother story because so many people tried to steal from us and had failed in this process. And, now you fast forward 8 years, we are backed by Takeda Pharmaceuticals, right? 23andMe's Ann Wojcicki, founder and CEO, United Healthcare Group investors, the largest payer in the United States. And we have a dozen partnerships that relate to the top 10 pharma companies in the world, to the largest patient registries, to the largest contract research organizations that are wanting to connect the dots of data for patient-centric interoperability. And I couldn't be more proud of our team. That's SEQSTER.
That's amazing, and brilliant journey, man. I would love to know, because your platform is patient-centric, a bit more about that patient-centric data. I would love to understand, like, what are the basically, and it's a very big significant challenge in the healthcare, right? So how exactly your SaaS solution contribute to solving this challenge altogether?
Yeah, so it's so simple, but yet so complex.
Yeah.
And I'll break it down for you. We started with the patient and consumer. Most digital health companies want to go the other way around, if not all. I think we're the only ones that started actually with no business plan and just a mission.
Yeah.
My mom is a breast cancer survivor. My dad is a colon cancer survivor. Both my grandparents passed away due to Alzheimer's disease. And of course, having spent 2 decades in sciences, genomics, data, I know a little bit about what you shouldn't do, I guess you could say. And that's always more important. And so at the time, we didn't know how big this healthcare data interoperability problem was until McKinsey told us that the numbers, according to McKinsey from 2016, it's a 35 to 40 billion annualized ballooning problem, meaning every year it's 40 billion plus, right? I don't even know what the numbers are now, 100 billion plus ever since 8 years ago, plus you add COVID on top of it. Even I always said COVID was a data interoperability issue. It actually wasn't a vaccine issue. And most people didn't understand that. Governments didn't understand that. That's a whole nother political conversation. But how we solved it was by not trying to solve the big problem. And in hindsight, it looks really easy because we started with the patient consumer and we built something that we learned from fintech. So we took a fintech approach to the architecture, to health tech. And in healthcare, unfortunately, everything is so archaic. When you're dealing with medical records, when you're dealing with providers, when you're dealing with payers, when you're dealing with clinical trials, when you're dealing with decentralized trials now, these things are either very new or they're very archaic. So there's lots of room for innovation. And we focused on the patients, we focused on families, we focused on the caregiver to be able to bring that data in, and then everything else followed, right? Pharma then saw that we built a patient engagement platform that could bring data. Then those companies started building with their engineers, with Deloitte, with McKinsey, with PwC, with folks out of India, with folks out of Singapore, with folks globally in the Middle East, out of Dubai. It didn't matter, where you were located. If you had an interoperability problem at the NHS, you were calling SEQSTER because you heard from the word of mouth that we were working on this incredible, challenging, ginormous problem. That's not the number one problem. That's not the number two problem. That's not the number three problem. It is number 1 and 2 and 3 combined for all of healthcare. Without data, you can't do AI. You can't run LLMs. Without data, you can't get care coordination. Without data, you can't do anything for the patient or for the provider. And so this is where, when you seek health data upon the request of the patient or individual and give access to the provider via a consent, that individual authorized. This is where it's a total game changer. And I couldn't be more excited for our latest announcement that was just January 16th for our one-click records
Yeah,
for life sciences and healthcare.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I would love to even understand, Ardy, like because there's such diverse data sources. How exactly do you ensure the comprehensive integration from these multiple sources altogether? Like how exactly does that happen?
Yeah, when you're talking about DNA data, and that's where we came from, hence the word SEQSTER. The reason why I named the company SEQSTER, other than I wanted to create a healthcare type of Napster for data sharing, not music sharing, like I mentioned. And there was no such word as SEQSTER. I bought SEQSTER for $9.99 on GoDaddy.com. True story. I have the records to prove it. It's an incredible journey, right? And now it's saved tens of thousands of lives. And the reason being is because we built this foundational technology where we started with DNA data, the sequencing data, and we stirred, made a really nice cocktail. I call it a really good old fashioned with a double black cherry on top. We have all the ingredients to create this longitudinal health record for both patients, providers, pharma companies, and any type of life science or healthcare enterprise. And whether that's launching a patient registry, whether that's for a parent that wants to do care coordination for their child that has a rare condition in diagnostic odyssey of some sort. Now with DNA data, it's ATCG. It doesn't matter what instrumentation the DNA sequencer spits out on the DNA data. But when you're talking about medical data, when it comes out of Mayo Clinic, it's completely different than when it comes out of Stanford or MD Anderson or Memorial Sloan Kettering or NYU or Emory, wherever that data may reside. In the United States, and of course, globally too, but in the United States particularly, the health data interoperability issue is a gigantic spider web on top of another spider web, on top of another layered spider web. And that's because how the business of healthcare has been run and how the data has been siloed. We unsilo that data, whether that's coming from one institution on a provider, combine it with your Apple Watch data, your Garmin data, even your old Jawbone data. There's 25 million people that had a Jawbone, and people don't even remember that wearable, but that data is siloed actually in the Jawbone cloud. We're able to access that per the request and consent of the patients. And of course, the use cases for us were very clear because we were backed by pharma. And so they built a patient engagement platform so that it can be deployed for clinical trials, decentralized trials, trial recruitment and retention, and various different use cases where we have expanded and are impacting patient lives at scale. It's phenomenal, the work that our team and these amazing innovators that run healthcare, that run pharma companies, that run startup companies, that run various different digital health initiatives. I couldn't be so proud.
Tell me one more thing. Because handling sensitive health data requires a high level of privacy and security. So, how does SEQSTER ensure that the privacy and the security of the health data is aggregated?
Yeah, this is so important. So, one of the 4 pillars that I instilled, not only with our engineering team, not only for our company at the beginning, other than our mission of just helping patients and saving lives with data, was the privacy, security, and transparency, which is so important. So SEQSTER does not own your data. It's so important. And at the time when I founded the company, we hated Facebook and we still do, because of how they control data and how they sell your data. And that's how they do business with the advertisements and things like that. In healthcare, that model will never work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because you have a cancer patient, you have a autoimmune disease patient, you have a rare disease patient. They don't want to have you steal their data. They want to actually advance research. So we created the first operating system. It's not even a platform. It's an operating system that gets deployed and white labeled for life science companies, such as pharma companies, patient registries, providers, and various different folks that want to connect all the dots to all this data. The most important thing on the privacy and security was how data actually gets collected. And because you, the patient, are in control, you have full ownership. There's transparency before we even get into the privacy and security. For privacy and security purposes, we built 256-bit encryption. All the data is scrambled. So for example, and this is true, and this is what's so amazing about SEQSTER. So in the United States and globally, you have data breaches all the time.
Yep.
Maybe on credit card companies, maybe on some sort of mailer that you were on. Maybe you went to some hotel and Hilton or Marriott got hacked. At some point, all our data has been unfortunately breached.
Yep.
With SEQSTER's data, it's totally different. Even if it does get breached, we've taken every measure to make it as protected as possible, more secure than even the Cleveland Clinic, which is the top institution in the United States that has all the security and all the money that you can think of, right? Even more secure than Stanford, than Harvard Partners, than Dana-Farber, you name it. Why? You may ask. The reason is all those institutions were built on archaic architecture that they're not going to change. They have millions of patients that they see on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, or whatever their volumes are. So they have one patient identifier for their entire database. But with SEQSTER, when Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Novo Nordisk, whoever it may be, Takeda, when they utilize our technology and they deploy it for their clinical trial or decentralized trials, what's amazing is if there's 10, 100, 10,000, a million patients that are going to be aggregating their data powered by SEQSTER, using that instance within their environment, there's 1 million encryption keys. There's 10,000 encryption keys. There's 100 encryption keys. There's 10 encryption keys, depending on if you have 10, 100, 10,000, or a million patients within that trial that are aggregating the data. And it's all scrambled. So if you look at your keyboard, your allergies and analytes are in the box A, your first name and birthday are in box U, and so forth. It's completely scrambled. And that's why it's so secure. That's why these enormous companies, Fortune 5 companies, are working with us, because we pass their security and privacy audits with flying colors. It's always green for us, like the color of the company.
That's amazing, man. Can you share some real world example of or success story of how operating system has positively impacted either patient, life science, or any other area?
Yeah, so a couple. When we first started out and Takeda made an investment in us, they, along with McKinsey Management Consulting Company, along with Deloitte, along with Accenture, along with Boston Consulting Group, all these amazing consulting groups that the big companies can afford to hire and pay hundreds of millions of dollars to, they were able to actually tell us which path to take, which was so important. Now, we didn't get paid by them, but we didn't have to pay them $50 million of their time. They gave us $50 million of their time. And so what's amazing about that is right away, we knew which clear use cases we should build for. Not only did we have patients, not only did we have data, but we had experienced folks that understand from the 30,000 foot level, as well as they could see the data at the fine print ground level that SEQSTER was delivering.
Yeah.
A couple of use cases that we started out first was on the engagement side, right? It was on the care coordination side. It was running certain tumor boards. One personally, and that hit close to home, was my own father unfortunately had some rectal bleeding. And this was on Christmas Eve a couple years ago. Next thing, we tell him to go take the Cologuard test by Exact Sciences. It's a genomic profiling test to see if you have any abnormal cells within your stool, which relates to fast tracking you to a colonoscopy. We did that, and he unfortunately had positive abnormal results. He was rushed to a colonoscopy right away, and he's on a system called Kaiser. There's about 12 million patients on the Kaiser health system in the United States, which mostly powers the state of California's patients. However, they have outside of California as well. And what was really interesting was how on a Saturday, I was able to run a tumor board with all his results before his GI calls. And we were able to get second opinion letters from top pathologists on the care coordination with a click of a button to share that data per his consent, and me being the caregiver, right? Since we built all these features.
Yep.
And we were able to get him in the surgery in less than a week versus 9-10 weeks. And that meant that they were able to take out a 52 millimeter tumor in his ascending colon and save his life. SEQSTER and my team and the team of pathologists saved my father's life. How? Because health data is medicine. And that's when I realized that, and I trademarked and own health data as medicine because of my own father. Because I realized that, wow, this is so powerful that with our technology, it's great to do business. It's great to get amazing partners. But how many founders and CEOs do you know that have created a technology that saves their own father's life? Granted, many other family members that I could get into on a whole nother call, many strangers' lives. And this is where the coverage has been. And that's where our platform really shines, because it's not a platform. It's an operating system.
Yeah.
We've created the SEQSTER OS where all these amazing modules can reside and various different use cases can hit, whether that's care coordination, which what we did for my dad on the provider side, or if it's a clinical trial, decentralized trial, and in COVID, people were at home, how are they going to get to the sites? We're able, with our one-click records, power any clinical sites. We're able to power any provider. We're able to power any pharmaceutical organization, any payer, to bring claims data, EMR data, genomics data, social determinants of health data, RX pharmacy data, to create a longitudinal health record.
Yeah.
It's the holy grail of medicine.
That's brilliant, man. And on another note, I would love to, like, with around 22 years now in life science and digital health, I would say, what key lessons have you learned, like, throughout your entrepreneurial journey? Anything that you would love to, like, point out in that direction, please?
Yeah, I've learned so many lessons, and I've learned so much from so many people.
Yeah.
I travel 250,000 plus miles a year globally. And you have to have open perspective. I think part of the problem is most people are closed-minded. Most people are bureaucratic. So you have to know how to cut the red tape very quickly. That's one thing I've learned. And you have to find stakeholders that understand that you have life-saving technology, and every single minute, every single second, someone is dying because we're not getting our technology into someone's hands. It's also sad, right? But the biggest takeaway for me over the past 8 years as SEQSTER plus 22 plus years just doing this every day is the fact that it's always day one. I have more energy today than I do than when I started 22 years ago. I have more energy today than when I started SEQSTER in January 10th of 2016, running around JP Morgan with a healthcare conference with my green backpack. I have more energy today than yesterday. And that is the secret sauce.
That's amazing. I would love to know, and we were discussing this before we jumped onto the recording. Any key marketing strategies that have been working for SEQSTER that you've employed to increase your reach or and engage well with your target audience, please?
Yeah, look, I speak at numerous different conferences, both domestically in the United States of America and globally, right? I just got back just a few months ago from speaking in Rome. I speak in Switzerland all the time because pharma's there. Wherever your market is, you should try to spend time there. And you shouldn't focus on just your backyard because you have to get new perspectives. I've learned more and we've been more successful and we've gotten investors because I have gone internationally versus just focusing on just domestic. And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what school or credential you have. It doesn't matter how tall you are or how much you weigh. At the end of the day, a patient is a patient. And so if you want to get that world view, and if you want people to understand your view as well, you have to go outside of your comfort zone. And so I thrive in uncomfortable situations. That's just in my DNA, but practice makes perfect for that as well. And when you create a technology, a product, a platform, an operating system that solves a magnitude of challenges in healthcare, everyone from Bill Gates to Ariana Huffington to XYZ want to speak to you. And the reason being is because there's nothing greater than your health being your wealth. And once you make a little bit of money, and whatever that number is for you individually, you start focusing on your health. You start focusing on your well-being. You start focusing on that because you want to live forever as healthy, as happy as you can be. There's nothing that can beat that.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. All right, Ardy, we're coming to an end and let's do a quick rapid fire round. Are you ready for that?
I'm always ready. Shoot.
Okay. If given superpower, what will you choose? Okay. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
I would love to talk to animals because I think it's just something that goes outside of your comfort zone and nobody can do that.
Okay. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Oh, 100%. I would say it would have to be during the time that the Persian Empire was at its greatest. And the reason being is because I would love to have been part of it.
Okay. Interesting. What's something you can eat for a week straight?
Oh, that's easy. It's pizza for me. So I'm a diehard pizza guy. And my favorite pizza is Joe's Pizza in New York City. And there's a couple of them that's called Joe's the Slice. By far the best pizza. Anytime I'm in New York and I get all these folks taking me to these fancy dinners, I eat a salad for dinner because for lunch and breakfast, I go buy a big pie of pepperoni mushroom pizza, extra well done.
Yeah.
and there's nothing more to it.
Amazing. Now, what's your hidden talent?
Oh, hidden talents. I don't know. I think if you asked my family, maybe they would say a different answer. I
Mhm.
think my hidden talent is that I don't get tired. I get more energized and I thrive off of success. I thrive off of celebrating the small wins. And that's how I've been able to get to where I am in my life.
That's amazing. Any funny nicknames your parents or your work colleague or your friends gave you?
Yeah. So I love e-blasts, and my team calls me Blaster Master.
All right. Now, coming to our very last question. What's your last Google search?
My last Google search actually was a particular drug that is coming out on the GLP-1 because of all the great things that Novo Nordisk and some of these other pharma companies were doing. It's actually up on my screen right next to you here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Ardy. Thank you for sharing your life experience about your company and so much wisdom, man. And I really wish the company best of luck. Your mission is amazing and you're doing some really fantastic work in your field. Really appreciate your time here with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on. Thank you very much.